We kick off our tour here in Norway, land of the Vikings, land of the 2002 Olympic gold medalist speed skater Johan Olaf Koss, and most importantly, land of a-ha, the 80s pop music band who sang the hit song Take On Me. Yes, Norway, where the summer days are very long and the winter days are very, very cold, which makes this land near the top of the globe ideal for hosting everything, from the 1994 Winter Olympics to this year's World Ice Golf Championship. And of course, there's the national sport of skiing. We're here, however, to follow a group of adrenaline junkies who enjoy the mountains for a completely different reason. In Norway, sea and mountain blend. Landscape creates art. Amidst the breathtaking terrain, there is serenity, tranquility, and base jumping. Base jumping, a flirtation between life and death. The word base is an acronym for the 4 fixed sites from which thrill seekers jump. Buildings, such as the Petronas Towers in Malaysia, which stand more than 1,400 feet tall. Antenna, including radio towers as low as 160 feet from the ground. Spans, otherwise known as bridges, and the earth, which beckons base jumpers to its most spectacular peaks.
I love base jumping in Norway, jumping from the high cliffs, because when you're standing on top of one of these cliffs, you feel so small in these huge surroundings around you, and this feeling of just letting yourself go off these cliffs, I get goosebumps just talking about it.
Karina Holakim grew up in Norway and is an extreme sport addict who spends her winters as a professional big mountain skier. Each June, she joins nearly 100 other base jumpers for the annual event called the Helleboogie, where the world's best basers come together to jump a 3,000-foot mountain in Norway called Sherag.
It's an event that we gather base jumpers from all over the world, and then they give us the choppers so that we can be a little lazy this weekend and not have to hike the 3 hours to get on top and just get several jumps in.
Norway has more base jumpers per capita than any other country in the world. One day each July, King Harald V recognizes base jumping by allowing jumpers to leap off the tallest building in Oslo. And every other day of the year, they're free to fall from almost any natural high point in the country. Tolerance is lower in the United States, where base jumping is prohibited everywhere, except for the Prime Bridge in Idaho and, for one day a year, the River Gorge Bridge in West Virginia. Authorities charge violators under trespassing, reckless endangerment, or public nuisance laws.
When I was a kid, I want to go over to the States because that's a free country, but I don't think it's that free. You have to come over here and you can do whatever. You can free fall 200 kilometers per hour, close to a mountain, that's okay. That's freedom.
We welcome anyone that wants to come here and jump off our mountains or our cliffs, because we want them to see the beautiful cliffs that we have as well.
2 years ago, Karina learned how to base from one of the world's most respected jumpers, Jeb Corliss. He's one of the 25 Americans who made the trip to Norway this summer. Outfitted in his signature black, Jeb stands out because of the complex acrobatic maneuvers he's incorporated into his base jumps.
Maybe when people look at him, they don't think that he's a lunatic that just wants to kill himself. They see what he does and they see that it's beautiful, and that might help people to change their view about base jumping, which is very good.
If you were to introduce acrobatic diving inside base jumping and combine the two and create a competition in that, then I think that's the future of base jumping.
Jeb's resume includes some of base jumping's hallowed high points. In 2001, he scaled San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge disguised as a construction worker. As dawn approached, he plunged 746 feet to the ground below, where he hid for 7 hours in surrounding brush as authorities searched for him in vain. The following year in New York City, Jeb jumped out of his 50th floor hotel guest room. He performed a reverse flip in 3 seconds of free fall before landing safely on Madison Avenue and surprising this cab driver.
How's it going, man? Where you came from? The sky.
For Jeb, jumping the Eiffel Tower in Paris in 2000 was the realization of a dream. Several other basers had previously jumped off the top of it, but Jeb, seeking to accomplish a more difficult jump, became the first person to exit off of the second lower platform from inside the tower. With the ground just 320 feet below, and with only 2 seconds before having to deploy his parachute, Jeb completed a double reverse flip. So happy to be alive after he landed, Jeb hugged the security guard who was waiting to arrest him. It was only the second time in his career that he'd been apprehended. Both times he was released with a slap on the wrist.
One thing I think that a lot of people kind of respect about the sport is the fact that people are just like, they just do it. They just go out there and it's like, you know what? It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission, so I'm just going for it. They just start doing things. And I think it's like a freedom almost. It's almost like being a bird, The freedom to just step off wherever you want and do whatever you want. And I mean, is that acceptable in a society? Well, maybe not.
For Jeb and Karina, it is their ability to deal with fear that allows them to base.
It's a very common thought that you think, why am I doing this? I'm so petrified. This seems crazy. And then still, you go on and you do it.
Base jumping is the most frightening sport on the planet. As scared as you would be stepping off a cliff is exactly how scared I am. The only difference between the two of us is I enjoy the way that makes me feel. It's something that I look for. It's in my everyday activities. I have found almost a love affair with fear.
Base jumpers say one thing is for certain. Injuries are inevitable. In the 10 years of the Hellebooge's existence in Norway, there have been 66 reported injuries and 8 fatalities. This year's Hellebooge was deemed a success. 500 total jumps resulted in only 2 fractured ankles and a broken kneecap. Jeb has personally known 4 jumpers who have died in the past year alone.
A lot of people think, what, you're not afraid of dying? What, you think you're immortal? You think you can't be killed? No, it's not that at all. It's actually the exact opposite. It's the fact that I know that I'm mortal. And the fact that I know that I can be killed. That's what makes me capable of doing this. Because I understand that, hey, I have a short life. It's not very long. And when this is over, it's over forever. So let's have some fun while we're here.
Jeb's closest call came in 1999 during a jump off of Howick Falls in South Africa. The force of the water suctioned his parachute into the falls, and as he ricocheted off the cliff ledges behind it, he broke his back and all of his ribs. Throughout the 9-hour rescue operation, tiny crabs ate away at his flesh.
Never once when I got injured did I ever think about stopping base jumping. Actually, the funny thing is when I hit the waterfall and I was like underwater, like fighting for air, the first thought that went through my mind is, can I move my toes? I started wiggling my toes and I'm like, oh, I'm not paralyzed, I can base jump again. That was the first thought I had.
Neither impending arrest nor peril seem to deter base jumpers. In most countries, they continue to sneak onto rooftops and bridges. And while they seem to revel in the clandestine nature of their capers, they also seek to have base jumping recognized as a legitimate sport.
For me, I think a sport is something that involves consequences. If it's just a made-up sport where a ball gets put through a hoop and one team loses, they lost, they didn't make as many baskets, well, there's no consequences. Whereas in bullfighting or base jumping, there's a consequence. You make a mistake and it means something. It means you're going to break a leg, it means you're going to hurt yourself, it means you could die. And that, to me, is what a sport is.
Jeb continues to try to improve his acrobatic aerial moves. In recent years, he's worked with the head coach of the USC men's and women's diving teams, who was a 2-time Olympian while competing for China. Monday, the SportsCenter World Tour rolls on as we'll travel across the globe to South Africa to examine a much more serious topic, the alarming rate of suicide among athletes in one of the world's most popular sports.